when we think of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, and we think, man, if I lived in those times, I would definitely be like Abu Bakr. How do you know you wouldn't be like Abu Jahl? He was pretty smart too. His name was Abu al-Hakam, the father of wisdom. Oh, but the Prophet ﷺ was, we would hear those amazing khutbahs. You imagine praying behind the Prophet ﷺ, the effect that it would have on your life. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, the chief of the hypocrites, prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ for years and it had no effect on him. Don't always just assume, man, those guys were lucky. They got to be with the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah, they also had to be beaten to a point of death, not just put through some humiliation at the airport. They had to be beaten. They had to give up their lives for following the Prophet ﷺ and forsaking a present desire for the sake of a future promise. But they did it anyway. This year in Hajj, I had a young man. He said, Allah is not fair. I said, how come? He said, how come Allah allows these people in Mecca, these people get the reward of 100,000 salah just because they live here? And we live in the States and we don't get any of that. And I said, why don't you think in the opposite way? How come they don't have the opportunity for da'wah that I have living amongst non-Muslims? You know how many times people in the Muslim countries will say, man, you guys are lucky, you get to do da'wah. We never see anyone take shahada. You imagine if someone took shahada at your hands, and Rasulullah ﷺ said it's better for you than red camels. And some of you are like, what are red camels? It's better for you than a Lexus, than a McLaren, than a, Bugatti or Bugatti with a la. It's better for you than any of that, meaning it's better than the world and anything that's in the world. One person takes shahada on your hands. And people in the Middle East are saying, those Muslims are so lucky in America. They don't know what they've got. If someone takes shahada on their hands, they can pray and they get the reward of their salah. They can fast and they get the reward of their fasting. Meaning everybody has their circumstances. And Allah will judge you according to your circumstances and how you acted in accordance with those circumstances. Usually when we think about it, it's like it's harder to be Muslim here. It's harder to be a hafiz. It's harder to read Quran whenever you're outside of the environment of Quran and stuff like that. And subhanAllah, it's true. It is harder. It's harder to be a good Muslim out of the masjid. Just like it's easier not to be a drug addict when you're not in rehab. And that's why sometimes we'll see people who, mashallah, are hafiz Quran and they lead Taraweeh, but they're also hafiz a lot of other stuff. Them being hafiz Quran does not absolve them from being hafiz all the other stuff. And leading Taraweeh does not absolve them from all of that. In essence, what happens when we create this vision where we are supposed to be religious only in the masjid, where everything has to be utopian, ideal in the masjid, everyone has to act religious in the masjid, but outside, you're fair game. You don't need to worry about developing your iman outside whenever you face real situations and real issues outside. Because you're supposed to be worrying about making sure that you're respecting the masjid and acting the way you're supposed to act and all of that. Basically what we're doing is we're forgetting the ayah, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ امْتَحَنَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُمْ لِلتَّقْوَى. They are the ones who Allah tested their hearts for faith. And Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu said, the one who is tested is not equal to the one who is not tested. Do you know what would happen to a zoo animal if you took him out the zoo and you put him in the wilderness? He's not going to live. He's not going to survive. None of those animals would make it because they've been sheltered in the zoo the whole time. So the fact that you can hold your faith, inshallah, that is high in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as long as your intention is right, because Allah will reward you according to that. And that's why Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu said, لَخَيْرٌ أَعْمَلُهُ الْيَوْمَ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِن مِثْلَيْهِ مَعْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. For me to do a good deed today is twice as beloved to me as doing a good deed while I was in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. That sounds blasphemous. Oh my God. How could you say it's twice as beloved for me to do something when the Prophet ﷺ passed away? He says, لِأَنَّا كُنَّا مَعْ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ يَهِمُّنَا الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَهِمُّنَا الدُّنْيَا. When we were with the Prophet ﷺ, we didn't care about dunya. All we cared about was akhirah. But now, قَدْ مَالَتْ بِنَا الدُّنْيَا. Now after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, now the dunya is attacking us from every side. Meaning circumstances count. So you prepare by wanting to be like them. You love those people. At the same time, you recognize your circumstances. And you know what? It might be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you and I a higher place in Jannah, inshaAllah ta'ala, than people that are better than us.